Are there really that many strange things happening in the military? In this video, I'm sharing 2 posts from the Russian Dvach forum about creepy encounters during military service. The first one was posted on the 22nd of March 2015. The OP recounts his time serving in Kherson, Siberia. During a night outing in an area that might have been a nuclear testing ground, he encountered a strange object and a series of bizarre events followed. He nearly lost his life. Luckily, the OP was in the K9 unit, and his partner, a German Shepherd, saved him. The second post was published on the 4th of January 2017. The OP served in the GRU Spetsnaz. During a special tactical exercise, his team got lost and stumbled upon a cabin in the woods, where they faced a series of terrifying events. From this post, we learned that that thing wasn't afraid of guns at all. The OP was armed with an AK-74M, and his comrade had an SVD sniper rifle. They fired multiple shots, but the entity showed no intention of dodging. Also, since the OP and his team were often stationed in the wild under harsh conditions, the happiest thing they could do was check their phones. So, they had high requirements for phone quality, but the price also had to be cheap. Some might say, keep dreaming. Where can you find a phone that's both cheap and high quality? Actually, you can browse for secondhand phones online. While browsing, I discovered that secondhand phones on Zhuan are a great deal. My iPhone 14 was only around 2,300, which is 2,000 cheaper than a new one. It works just like new, so it feels totally worth it. Plus, Zhuan is a reliable, large platform for used goods. The phones go through multiple rounds of strict quality checks. Each one has comprehensive close-up photos and a function test report. Their laptops are also a bargain. For buying reliable secondhand gear, I only recommend Zhuan. Now that we've bought the phone, let's start with military mystery number 6. In this post, the OP introduces himself as Nikolai. He must be quite old now, but when he experienced this bizarre event, he was very young. So, let's call him Kolya. Kolya was serving in Murmansk in a Tucson Neo-194. After serving for just a year, which was in 1995, he got into a conflict with a lieutenant and was transferred to Kherson in northern Siberia. At that time, it was still an independent city, but now it's a district of Norilsk. When Kolya was transferred, he had already served a full year, so he was considered a veteran. Things were fine in the new company. There were no conflicts. In fact, after hearing about Kolya's history, his comrades respected him for standing his ground and daring to argue with superiors. However, daily training was still mandatory. Every day was the same routine of shooting practice and running, day after day. The only difference from his previous unit was that this place was extremely remote. You had to go over 20 kilometers west to reach the city. To the north, about 10 kilometers away, was an old quarry. Kolya and the others were often sent there for odd jobs. In all other directions from the camp lay the vast, boundless Siberian taiga. The taiga is the coniferous forest of the cold northern regions of Russia. Kolya learned from his comrades that the reason this place was so desolate was because during the Soviet era, nuclear tests were conducted here, including several underground nuclear explosions. Before enlisting, Kolya's profession was a veterinarian, so not long after arriving at the new unit, he was assigned to the K9 squad. There weren't many dogs, only about 10, and all of them were German Shepherds. Whenever the officers gave a briefing, they would say that the reason they needed these dogs was to quickly find people in the forest. Kolya was assigned a female dog named Taiga. She was just over a year old, had received absolutely no search and rescue training, and was very stubborn. During their first joint training session, Taiga was extremely nervous, anxiously spinning in circles and desperately trying to break free from the leash. Kolya, lacking experience, tried to soothe her. As a result, Taiga whipped her head around and bit right into his hand, nearly biting all the way through. His comrades quickly put a muzzle on Taiga and locked her in the kennel, while Kolya was sent to the infirmary. However, he wasn't angry about it. Kolya believed it was just a lack of training and unfamiliarity. But his comrades told him that Taiga had previously shown strong aggression towards other soldiers too, and was very hard to tame. When the colonel found out about the incident, he decided that after the next exercise, Taiga was to be shot. Kolya was furious when he heard this. First, when they assigned him this dog, they never warned him that she was hard to train. Second, since they assigned Taiga to him, a vet, how could they just shoot her so easily? So, Kolya went straight to the colonel and begged for one more chance to train Taiga. To his surprise, the colonel didn't object. He just shrugged and said, "You want to try again? Fine, do it your way." But if it doesn't work this time, she definitely has to be put down. I don't want to see any more reports of soldiers getting injured. Kolya got the approval and immediately started working. He took some food and went to the kennel to see Taiga. When Taiga saw Kolya, she lowered her ears and looked up at him through the fence with a confused, almost apologetic look. Eventually, she accepted the food. By now, Kolya basically understood the stubborn personality of this shepherd. He began using his professional knowledge to gradually find a way to get along with Taiga. 2 months later, Kolya and Taiga finally built a bond of trust. Taiga was allowed to participate in training again, and her performance got better and better. She quickly became one of the best in the squad. Taiga was very smart. She could find hidden objects every time and subdue mock criminals. During wilderness searches, Taiga's performance was also outstanding. Even the faintest sense couldn't escape her nose. As for Kolya, he received a commendation for his excellent dog training. And so, Kolya and Taiga, man and dog, began their life of service together. When he was 6 months away from discharge, Kolya started feeling sad. He no longer looked forward to leaving like before, because getting discharged meant leaving Taiga behind. However, just then, a strange event occurred that remains unexplained to this day. It was a day in mid-August. The Siberian summer was clear but not hot. After lunch, Kolya and his comrades were sent to the quarry to load sand. Once they arrived, they started working. Each was given a shovel to load sand into dump trucks. While Kolya and the others worked hard, the officers and the quarry guards stood nearby chatting and laughing. This went on until about 5 p.m. Work was done. Kolya and the team returned to the unit to rest. After dinner, about an hour before lights out, which was around 10 p.m., unlucky Kolya walked out of the barracks alone, wanting to admire the stars and breathe some fresh air. Just then, a lieutenant named Saryov came running towards him, drunk. Saryov rushed over, grabbed Kolya by the collar and shouted, "Emergency! Get to the quarry immediately! I forgot my sidearm there." Kolya didn't react immediately. He was stunned, standing there motionless. Lieutenant Saryov kept yelling, even starting to curse, urging Kolya to leave at once. Kolya said, "It's so late. Even if you don't send a car, at least find me a partner to go with." At this moment, the colonel's voice came from the distant command post saying, "Soldier, execute Saryov's order. I authorize you to go at night." Having received the order, Kolya had no choice but to obey. It was 10 kilometers to the quarry. Kolya figured if he walked fast, he could get there in an hour and a half. A round trip would take about 3 hours, so he could still get some sleep when he got back. So, he started jogging. The road from the unit to the quarry was winding and full of potholes. After running for a while, his energy completely faded. It was late at night, and walking alone on a desolate road was truly terrifying. The surrounding pitch-black forest made him feel like some unknown danger was hiding inside. Kolya recalled the horror stories circulating in the unit about people disappearing without a trace in the taiga, and various legends about nuclear radiation. So, he quickened his pace again. After walking for a while, Kolya felt he had gone quite a distance, and estimated he was close to the right turn leading to the quarry. He looked left and right. Just then, he saw a faint yellow glow behind the trees. Roughly speaking, it was coming from the direction of the quarry. Kolya breathed a sigh of relief. He remembered that while loading sand during the day, there was indeed a huge searchlight at the quarry. He figured the light came from that. Kolya thought for a moment and decided to take a shortcut, cutting straight through the woods towards the light. After all, the main road was mostly for vehicles. There was no need to be so rigid on foot. Besides, since he could already see the quarry lights, it would only be a 2 or 3 kilometer walk through the woods. So, Kolya entered the taiga. The light ahead made him momentarily forget the terrors of the forest. But after walking among the trees for a long time, Kolya felt he had walked 3 or 4 kilometers. Yet he still hadn't reached the quarry. And that ball of light continued to flicker in the distant woods. Kolya started getting creeped out. Fear welled up in his heart, and his heartbeat quickened. He decided to change direction, walking at an angle between the light and the road. If he couldn't reach the quarry, getting back to the road would be fine too. He walked for another stretch of time. Kolya couldn't say exactly how long. The ball of light ahead grew noticeably brighter, and he could see it clearly now. That was no searchlight, because he could clearly see that the light in the woods wasn't uniform, and the color shifted between white and blue. Kolya stopped to observe carefully, trying to figure out what this mysterious orb of light actually was. Just then, several smaller points of light came into view. They were bobbing around the large orb, and were clearly moving towards him. Kolya, was mesmerized by this strange sight, staring without blinking, feeling nervous. He tried to find a rational explanation, thinking, maybe it's people from the quarry with searchlights and flashlights searching for something in the woods. But he didn't even believe that himself. Out of instinct, Kolya immediately hid behind a tree. After a few seconds, he peeked out from behind the tree. The small lights had vanished, leaving only the large orb. But soon, the small orbs appeared again, wobbling and slowly approaching his direction. Kolya quickly pulled back, a thought flashing through his mind. Could it be that those small lights can feel my gaze? He didn't know what to do now. The fear was growing stronger, and his mind was in chaos. Kolya tried to calm himself down. The small lights continued to move towards him, seeming to have locked onto him. Kolya crouched behind the big tree, daring not to peek again. He didn't know how long he hid there, maybe tens of minutes or an hour. But the light from behind him kept flickering the same way, neither brightening nor dimming. Finally, Kolya decided to head back to the road. He stood up cautiously, trying not to make a sound, and moved towards the highway. His pace went from cautious at first to a full sprint later on. Soon, he saw the outline of the road and breathed a sigh of relief. He was about to escape the taiga. Kolya plucked up the courage to look back. In that glance, he saw something extremely bizarre and surreal. The huge light source was still in the distance, but just a few meters behind him, a strange object was following him. It looked like a red-hot metal sphere, glowing a bright pale yellow, about a meter in diameter. Its surface was covered in bumps, or something like antennas. This thing wasn't bobbing up and down in the air, but rolling along the ground. Those spikes on its surface left distinct marks on the ground. This sight threw Kolya's mind into complete chaos, and the sphere kept rolling towards him. His memory cut off right there. When he woke up, Kolya was lying in a hospital bed. What happened next was told to him by his comrades and doctors. They said Kolya never returned to the unit that night. Near morning, the entire camp was mobilized. Soldiers were sent to search the woods leading to the quarry. The officers went immediately to the quarry and retrieved the weapon left there. At the same time, they learned from the quarry staff that no soldier had visited the quarry that night, and nothing unusual was noticed. The soldiers searched the woods sector by sector carefully, but found nothing until evening. The colonel had to report to his superiors, and Kolya was labeled a deserter. A massive search operation was launched in the area. 2 days later, the search yielded initial results. About 40 kilometers south of the unit, in the completely opposite direction of the quarry, military dogs tracked a scent and found Kolya's clothes. The scene looked very strange. Pieces of Kolya's uniform were laid out on the ground in sections, evenly spaced from each other, from his jacket to his pants. It looked like he was walking while tearing his clothes to leave markers. There were also bloodstains on the clothes. But Kolya himself was nowhere to be found. As it was getting dark that day, the soldiers were ordered to return to camp for the night. Only Kolya's dog, Taiga, refused to give up, constantly trying to charge forward. Leading Taiga was an experienced rescue soldier. Taiga pulled desperately on the leash. The soldier tried to pull her back, but Taiga suddenly lunged at him, forcing him to let go of the leash. Then Taiga rushed alone deep into the dense forest. No one dared chase after her in the dark. The next morning, the rescue team followed Taiga's tracks. After walking a few kilometers, they found Taiga curled up next to Kolya. Kolya was lying naked on the ground. His face was covered in blood. His hands and feet were scraped, and the hair on his body, eyebrows, beard, all his hair was gone. What surprised the rescuers was that they could still feel Kolya's weak pulse. No one knew how Kolya, without food or water for 2 days, walked over 50 kilometers in the dense taiga. He was rushed to the city hospital. Doctors diagnosed frostbite, but the cause of his hair loss remained a mystery. Radiation tests showed nothing, and there were no other signs of radiation sickness. Later, the doctor explained that if it weren't for the dog warming Kolya with her body all night, he definitely wouldn't have survived till dawn. After Kolya woke up, HQ sent an older colonel to question him. He recounted every detail he could remember as thoroughly as possible. The older colonel listened while taking notes in a notebook, telling Kolya not to worry, that the desertion charge was dropped, and he'd be better off forgetting the whole thing. Kolya stayed in the hospital for 3 weeks before being discharged. Back at the unit, he learned that Lieutenant Saryov was demoted and transferred to another region. The unit officers, after hearing Kolya's story, went to question the quarry guards again. The guards then recalled that on that night, they did see strange lights above the forest. However, due to a lung infection, the military arranged for Kolya's early discharge. When leaving, Kolya wanted to take Taiga with him. It took a lot of effort, plus his comrades pleading for him, before he was finally allowed to buy her. After discharge, Kolya rarely thought back on that experience. His hair quickly grew back. Aside from some after effects from the frostbite, his body had no other issues. Not long after, Kolya got married and lived a normal life. He told his wife about the experience. She was very interested and urged Kolya to try hypnosis to see if he could recall more details. At first, Kolya strongly refused, but later his own curiosity got the better of him, so he agreed. The hypnotist was a very unique woman. She told Kolya to relax, close his eyes, and listen only to her voice. Kolya followed her instructions and, in his mind, returned to the last scene before his memory cut out, clearly recalling the metal sphere. But beyond that, he couldn't remember anything. No matter what the hypnotist asked, he couldn't answer. After that, Kolya never sought out any related experts again. But sometimes, fragmented images would flash through his mind. They seemed to be walls, not brick walls, more like stone walls, like the walls of a medieval castle. The stones were huge and very smooth, like concrete, the color of basalt. Kolya seemed to have been in a room with such walls, but he wasn't sure. He didn't know if it was a real memory or just his imagination. To this day, that blank memory remains unfilled, and the event remains unexplained. That was the first story for this video. Now, coming up in first-person perspective, we start the second post of Military Mysteries, Special Forces Tactical Exercise. I want to tell you about something extremely bizarre. This happened to me and my comrades. After college, I voluntarily enlisted. You might think I'm stupid. Think what you want, I don't care. At the time, my girlfriend of 5 years broke up with me, and my hometown, Privolzhsk, didn't have any suitable jobs for me. So I cut off the long hair I'd grown for a while and signed up at the recruitment office. My physical rating was A1, and I passed the psychological tests with flying colors. I was assigned to the GRU Spetsnaz, stationed in Tambov. Life in the unit was tough. Almost every day involved intense physical training, and field marches were routine. At first, veterans would haze the new recruits. We went hungry, did parachute training, and practiced with various weapons. Besides that, we had a special task called TSU. Simply put, it's completing a designated mission as a squad. First, you have to infiltrate the recon area quietly without being detected by the enemy. The commanders playing the enemy would drive Ural trucks around the training zone. If any squad was spotted, the mission was a failure. Our mission duration was 1 week, but every 3 hours, we had to report the squad's status and coordinates to the captain or sergeant major. To avoid exposing our target, weapons custody and personnel safety for the whole squad were managed by the squad leader and us veterans. It was winter, and the exercise took place in the forests of the Tambov region. The snow was waist-deep. Our squad was heading towards a bridge. The objective was to blow it up. But on the 4th day, we realized we were lost. We had no idea where we were. We relied on a tattered map, a compass, and azimuths to determine direction. According to the plan, we should have reached a railway by now, but there wasn't even a sign of one. Our squad gathered to discuss, and the conclusion was that we were indeed lost. By regulation, we should immediately call for rescue and admit mission failure, then wait for extraction. But we didn't want to be the laughingstock of the brigade, so we decided to split up. Small groups would scout and meet back at the starting point in an hour to see if we could determine our current location. I went with a comrade responsible for rearguard security. We walked for a full half hour in waist-deep snow and dense forest, but eventually had to give up and turn back. When we returned to the rally point, the comrades responsible for forward scouting had already returned. They all said they hadn't found any landmarks to determine direction. Everyone was exhausted. However, our squad leader, let's call him Old Bo here, brought us good news. He found a high-voltage power line and said we could follow the wires. The map showed that within a 30-kilometer radius, there were several high-voltage lines. As for how Old Bo pinpointed this specific one, we didn't know, so everyone gathered under the power line to rest. We ate some hardtack, drank some tea, and smoked a cigarette. Before heading out again, we tried to contact the captain via radio to report in, but the communication failed. During the previous 2 calls, the signal interference had been severe, but we couldn't worry about that now. We just wanted to end this long march quickly. I was absolutely sick of walking in this snow. We continued along the power line. This line was extremely old. The poles were wooden, and some were rotten beyond recognition, leaning every which way. We walked for a long, long time, moving at a snail's pace. The sky gradually darkened. My backpack and rifle dug painfully into my shoulders. We all marched with our heads down. I was chatting with my best friend in the unit, Dima, talking about life before enlisting and fantasizing about partying hard after going home. As we walked, the two of us fell behind the main group. We could only see the white camouflage uniforms of our comrades moving in the forest ahead, faintly, like ghosts. Just then, a message came over the squad radio telling us to stop. Soon, a voice said, "Brothers, there seems to be a house ahead. There's light in the window. Everyone assemble. Get over here, quick." Dima and I immediately sped up to catch up. Everyone was half sitting, half lying, in the snow smoking, taking turns observing with B8 binoculars. The binoculars were soon passed to me. Honestly, I didn't care much about that little cabin ahead. At the time, Dima and I were discussing girls' figures and his promise to treat me to some fun in Smolensk after discharge. Through the binoculars, that cabin looked like a dilapidated country cottage, surrounded by a broken fence. The roof was crooked. A light bulb without a shade hung down from the ceiling, emitting a faint glow. Also, the high-voltage line we had been following suddenly turned right here, extending deep into the forest. We sat in the snow for a while longer, chatting. A machine gunner who enlisted the same year as me said confidently that, since there were no other residents nearby, that house ahead was likely a forest ranger's cabin or someone's temporary shelter. So we decided to go ask the owner about our location and maybe bum some food or a pack of cigarettes. Old Bo told half the men to stay put and watch the packs. I, along with a few other comrades, took our weapons and headed towards the cabin. The path to the cabin had been covered by snow for days. It looked like no one cleared it usually, just occasional traces of people walking. We got to the yard, stepped right over the dilapidated fence, walked under the eaves, and knocked on the door. A strange rustling sound came from inside, along with heavy footsteps. We knocked a few more times and tried to look through the window. I yelled inside, "Could you please open the door? We're soldiers. We got lost during training." Right after I shouted, the light inside suddenly went out. A young instructor from the recruit company whispered, "Hey, do you think the owner is afraid to open the door because we're soldiers?" Old Bo asked me over the radio what was happening. I replied, "Not sure. No one's opening up." But the light inside suddenly died. Old Bo replied, "I saw that. Find a way to get them to open up. It's getting dark, and we still don't know where we are or where to go." A comrade by the window signaled us over. Dima and I decided to try pulling the door. Unexpectedly, we used too much force, and that old wooden door fell right off with a crash. A wave of heat rushed out from inside, mixed with an extremely foul stench. We quickly stepped back a few paces. The other comrades heard the noise and gathered around. Old Bo must have seen this through his binoculars too. He cursed over the radio. I stepped back a few more steps and quickly reported, "We accidentally knocked the door off. It's pitch black inside and smells terrible. Also, it looks like there's another door inside." Old Bo told Dima and me to take 2 beavers and check around the back of the house. Beaver is what we call new recruits, because when they first arrive, they kind of look like beavers. Well, when I first joined the Spetsnaz, the veterans called me that too. After receiving Old Bo's order, we circled around the back while shouting, "Anyone home?" When we got to the back, we opened the back door and walked straight in. Our flashlights revealed a mess. There was a pile of rags on the floor, a mattress torn to shreds with stuffing scattered everywhere. Dima walked in and opened a door on the right, but immediately closed it, saying it was the toilet and it stank. I knocked on the door opposite the toilet. Still no response. I shouted, "Is anyone there? We're lost. Can you point us in the right direction?" Just then, a beaver suddenly screamed from behind. "Oh my God!" Dima and I turned around. It was the scout beaver. He was running out of the house. As he ran, he yelled, "Run! Brothers, something's wrong in there." After shouting, he ran straight towards the forest without looking back. But he barely took 2 steps before seemingly losing consciousness instantly and falling heavily to the ground. Static crackled over my radio. Old Bo asked frantically, "What's wrong? What happened?" Dima and I were just about to check on the scout beaver when the other engineer beaver yelled, "Are you crazy? Watch out for an ambush." As soon as he yelled, I heard rapid footsteps coming from behind that door, accompanied by an incomprehensible, raspy whimpering sound. Simply put, it sounded like a cow trying to mimic human speech. I started to panic. So did Dima. It all happened within a few seconds. I had only one thought in my mind: get out of here fast. Old Bo's anxious shouting came over the radio again. "Retreat! Retreat to my position. I repeat, run. The three of us immediately ran out, found cover, then turned and aimed our guns at the door. The other comrades were running through the snow towards us. I tightened my grip on the trigger and asked over the radio what the hell was going on and what happened to the scout Beaver. But no one answered me. That engineer Beaver was hiding under the window. He slowly stood up and looked inside. Suddenly, he screamed and jumped back, yelling, "Run!" Then, he also ran toward the forest, without looking back. And just like the other one, he barely made it 2 steps before collapsing heavily, motionless. Before I could even react or decide where to run, seeing him like that, I immediately crouched down. Just then, all the glass in the cabin shattered suddenly. Accompanied by the sound of breaking glass, I heard a roar that definitely didn't come from a human. Then I saw a huge cloud of black smoke, thick like black cotton, with 2 eyes like burning coals inside. My mind went completely blank. The only thing I could do was follow my most primal combat instinct. Dima beside me reacted faster. He was already kneeling, raising his SVD sniper rifle. A deafening gunshot exploded in the silent forest. I also immediately raised my AK-74M and pulled the trigger at the black mist. Gunshots rang out, but they had no effect because our guns were loaded with training blanks. It was no different from setting off firecrackers. But when that black mist saw us firing, it showed absolutely no intention of dodging. It probably wouldn't have been scared even if we had live ammo. The black mist slowly drifted out from the windows and door frames, gathering on the snow in front of the eaves. Then it began to writhe and rise, gradually forming a massive humanoid silhouette over 3 meters tall. Those 2 bright red lights were positioned where the head would be, staring coldly at us. The thing didn't make a sound, but I could feel a pure malice coming from it. Old Bo was screaming his lungs out over the radio. "I order you to retreat. Everyone run to me. Run." Intense fear washed over me like a bucket of ice water. Dima and I didn't even look back at the 2 fallen beavers. We turned and sprinted back the way we came. After running a bit, I looked back. My heart nearly jumped out of my throat. The massive body of that shadow was floating effortlessly over the snow, silently following us. It was less than 5 meters away. I could even smell a nauseating stench, like burnt hair and rotting flesh. Then, both Dima and I temporarily lost consciousness. A few minutes later, Old Bo and the other comrades ran up to us. By then, the 2 beavers had woken up too and were stumbling towards us. But that black humanoid thing was gone. Our comrades grabbed us and we evacuated rapidly. During the retreat, I seemed to hear the roar from the cabin again. Our squad scrambled through the snow. I don't know how long we ran, until we stopped from sheer exhaustion. By then, the sky was completely dark. We tried to contact HQ, but there was 0 signal. After resting a while, we kept moving. Every so often, we fired a flare and constantly adjusted the radio, but still couldn't get a signal. It was dead silent all around. Finally, we reached a railway line. We followed the tracks and found an unnamed platform to spend the night. We took turns resting, not daring to light a fire. Half stood guard while the other half slept. The next morning, we continued along the tracks and finally made contact with HQ. We found out later that they had been searching for us for a while. I still remember when the Ural truck came to pick us up. The captain was screaming in rage. Back at the unit, we wrote reports over and over and were interviewed by everyone from the political officer to the psychiatrist. It wasn't until a few days later that I heard from Old Bo that they had investigated the cabin. He said they found a freshly dug pit behind the house containing the body of a woman. She was face down, and her body had turned purple, but the unit forbade us from discussing it. The final conclusion was that I, Dima, and the 2 beavers, the 4 of us, suffered from mass hysteria induced by extreme conditions, basically a collective hallucination. The 4 of us were even sent for a month-long psychological evaluation. Now that a long time has passed, I'm sharing this with you. I want to say that it wasn't a hallucination. All 4 of us saw it. Alright, that's all for this video. I'm Nkeming. See you next time.